In the dark annals of history, few periods are as chilling and harrowing as the Great Purge under the iron-fisted rule of Joseph Stalin in the Soviet Union. From the late 1930s to the early 1940s, this brutal campaign of political repression, persecution, and state terror cast a long, menacing shadow over the lives of millions. It was a time when fear and suspicion permeated every corner of Soviet society, and no one was safe from the ruthless hand of the state. The Great Purge, also known as the Great Terror, was a systematic effort by Stalin and his loyal enforcers to eliminate any perceived threats to his absolute power. The targets were diverse, ranging from high-ranking officials and intellectuals to workers and peasants. No one was immune from the paranoia and insecurity that had gripped the Soviet leadership, and the consequences of being labeled an enemy of the people were invariably dire. The early stages of the Great Purge saw a wave of arrests, show trials, and executions aimed at decimating the ranks of the Communist Party and the military. The infamous Moscow trials, with their grotesque spectacle of false confessions and coerced testimonies, sent shockwaves through Soviet society and beyond. The once untouchable figures of the Bolshevik Revolution found themselves standing trial as traitors and saboteurs, their legacies tarnished and their lives snuffed out in the name of Stalin's insatiable thirst for control. But the reach of the Great Purge extended far beyond the corridors of power. Ordinary citizens, too, found themselves caught in the tightening grip of the state's terror apparatus. Accusations of espionage, counter-revolutionary activities, and sabotage were rampant, often based on flimsy or entirely fabricated evidence. The ubiquitous secret police, the NKVD, operated with terrifying impunity, instilling a climate of pervasive fear and distrust. Families were torn apart as loved ones vanished into the labyrinthine network of prisons and labor camps that scarred the Soviet landscape. The infamous Gulag system, with its inhumane conditions and relentless toil, became synonymous with the suffering and degradation endured by those deemed enemies of the state. Countless lives were unceremoniously snuffed out, while many more languished in the grip of despair and hopelessness, their voices silenced by the machinery of repression. The psychological toll of the Great Purge was immeasurable. Neighbors turned on each other, denouncing supposed subversives to save themselves from the specter of arbitrary arrest and summary execution. Whispered conversations and furtive glances replaced open discourse and trust, as the pervasive atmosphere of terror corroded the bonds of community and solidarity. Meanwhile, the propaganda machine of the Soviet regime worked tirelessly to spin a web of lies and distortions, presenting the purges as a necessary cleansing of the body politic. The glorification of Stalin's leadership and the demonization of his alleged enemies permeated every aspect of public life, creating a suffocating aura of surveillance and sycophancy. Despite the suffocating environment of fear and suspicion, acts of resistance and defiance persisted, albeit in the shadows. Underground movements, clandestine whispers of dissent, and small gestures of solidarity served as flickering beacons of hope in the darkness of totalitarian rule. The human spirit, it seems, is irrepressible, even in the face of unspeakable horror. Ultimately, the Great Purge exacted a staggering toll on Soviet society, leaving scars that would endure for generations. The decimation of the intelligentsia, the devastation of families, and the erosion of trust between individuals and the state created fissures that could never be fully healed. The trauma of the purges reverberated through the collective consciousness of the Soviet people, serving as a grim reminder of the horrors that unchecked power can unleash. In the end, the Great Purge stands as a stark testament to the depths of human suffering and the perils of unchecked,